Thank you so much. The subcommittee will come to order. I know that our panelists are going to be stepping out here in a second. We will have votes starting at possibly 3 or 3:15, so we will try to wrap up before then. After recognizing myself and Ranking Member Deutsch for 5 minutes each for our opening statements, I will then recognize other members seeking recognition for 1 minute. We will then hear from our witnesses, and without objection, the prepared statements of our witnesses will be made a part of the record, and members may have 5 days to insert statements and questions for the record, subject to the length limitation in the rules. The chair now recognizes herself for 5 minutes. In recent years, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan has turned into one of America's most important allies. The King of Jordan has proven to be a reliable partner and someone who is committed to protecting our shared security interest. With all of the violence, all of the turmoil in the region, and the accompanying instability and insecurity, the U.S. has made a substantial commitment to strengthening our bilateral relations with the kingdom. That commitment was reflected in a renewal of our Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, with Jordan, which was signed a year ago last week. This new MOU recognizes the importance of Jordan in the fight on the front lines against ISIS and radical fundamentalism, as well as the kingdom's leadership in taking in over 1 million refugees from Syria and Iraq. Jordan's resources are already scarce, and with the addition of over 1 million Syrian and Iraqi refugees, these resources are being strained to the limit, stretched to the limit. That's why it is vital that we help Jordan shore up some of these resources, especially when it comes to the kingdom's water needs and energy needs. Through our MCC Jordan Compact, a $275 million compact that nears its completion, we have invested in public-private partnership wastewater projects that are now operational and serving over 1 million people, many of whom are refugees. I had the pleasure of visiting the Samra wastewater plant in 2014 with Mr. Deutsch, and its importance cannot be overstated. I'm also pleased that a local South Florida firm, Hazen and Sawyer, was the engineering firm that managed the project, proof that these MCC compacts and projects can benefit both the U.S. economy and also the host nations. There are other projects, and it is important that we begin to bring them to fruition. One of these will not only be important to alleviate the water shortage in Jordan, but it has the potential to also improve the cooperation and bilateral relations between Israel and Jordan. The Red to Dead project. Continued U.S. investment in this sort of infrastructure project has enormous upside and can really be a game changer, and it's critical that Congress remains supportive of these efforts. There's also the benefit, the potential for collaborative work between Israel and Jordan in other areas that can be mutually beneficial, especially when it comes to Jordan's energy needs. Jordan signed an agreement with Israel to import natural gas. And again, as with the wastewater project, this agreement has economic benefits for the U.S. as well, with U.S.-based Noble Energy discovering the natural gas field off the coast of Israel and now ready, willing, and able to begin production to help meet the growing natural gas demand in Jordan and elsewhere. And it will be important that we continue to support these efforts and others just like them, because Israel and Jordan have shared concerns, shared interests, and it would be mutually beneficial for the two to work closely together. We must also continue to support the good work of USAID, the good work that they're doing to help Jordan in its economy, but also the work it does to strengthen the country's democracy and governance, as well as female empowerment programs. The Jordanian government's commitment to political reform over these past few years has been commendable, and it is clear that our programs have had a good amount of success based on the interest and the support from the government and the Jordanian people. A testament to how this International Republican Institute, IRI, has been able to expand from working in just a handful of districts when its programs first started in Jordan to now over 30 and seeking to expand further in the coming years. These programs have had successes. We need to build upon the support these programs have received and work with the kingdom to help strengthen democracy and governance in Jordan and to strengthen civil society. On security, Jordan needs are also substantial because of the kingdom. The kingdom has been such a staunch ally in the coalition against ISIS, and the stability and security of Jordan are vital if we are ever going to see a secure and stable region. That's why I'm pleased that the bill I introduced with Congressman Deutsch and as well as Congresswomen Granger and Lowy, the U.S.-Jordan Defense Cooperation Act, has passed Congress just last night and will now make its way to the President's desk. This bill recognizes Jordan's precarious situation and the need for the U.S. to support the King's effort against ISIS. That is why it will allow for expedited sales of certain weapons and ammunition and excess defense articles that the kingdom needs to secure its borders, to protect its citizens, and to assist the coalition in the fight against ISIS. But as the king reminded us when he visited us last month, we cannot keep a myopic focus on the fight against ISIS and think that it's just in Iraq and in Syria. ISIS is spreading, it is gaining support elsewhere, and it has shown that it has the capability to strike the West as well. The king warned us not to lose sight of the threat that ISIS poses in Africa, where it can gain a lot of support and use a lot of territory for safe havens, and we obviously can't lose sight of the threat ISIS poses to us here in the homeland. This is an obvious difficult task, but it would be much more difficult were it not for the leadership and the willingness of our ally Jordan to take on this challenge together. I look forward to expanding and strengthening our relationship with the Kingdom of Jordan in the coming months and years, and I thank the King for his steadfast commitment to the security and stability of the region, and we welcome the ambassador with us today. Thank you so much. Mr. Deutsch is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, you've been a true champion of the U.S.-Jordan relationship, and I thank you for the opportunity to discuss the challenges facing our two countries in depth today. Thanks to our witnesses for being here today and for the work that your agencies do to promote a stable and prosperous Jordan and to advance the U.S.-Jordan cooperation. I'd especially like to thank Ambassador Fierstein for his many years of service and wish him well in his retirement. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize the Jordanian ambassador, Ambassador Baran, who does a fantastic job here in Washington and is a valued resource to many on this subcommittee. I'm also pleased that legislation introduced by the chairman and me, the U.S.-Jordan Defense Cooperation Act, has now passed the House and Senate and is on its way to the President's desk. I thank our colleagues for supporting this bipartisan legislation that will ensure that Jordan has the tools that it needs to confront regional challenges. Just over a year ago, the United States and Jordan cemented our partnership in a new memorandum of understanding that increased U.S. assistance to Jordan from $600 million to $1 billion annually. This increase reflects our commitment to Jordan's stability and recognition of the tremendous strain placed upon Jordan since the start of the Syrian crisis, as well as Jordan's willingness to partner in the fight against ISIS. The conflict in Syria has fundamentally altered Jordan, and its effects will be felt for years to come. Jordan, already a home to hundreds of thousands of Iraqi refugees from previous conflicts, has taken in over 635,000 Syrian refugees. And that number only reflects those refugees who are officially registered with the UNHCR. Jordanian officials estimate this number is probably much higher than that. In fact, most Syrian refugees aren't currently living in the two UN-run camps and have instead assimilated into Jordanian towns. And while Jordanian host communities have welcomed Syrian refugees into their communities, the influx has, of course, placed a strain on Jordan's already scarce resources, particularly water and energy. Many of our USAID programs have focused on increasing access to water while reducing waste. In fact, USAID programs have brought fresh water and sanitation services to more than 1/3 of Jordan's population. We look forward to hearing more about these efforts from Assistant Administrator Alexander. Chairman Ros-Lehtinen and I had the opportunity to visit the Samra wastewater treatment plant, the product of the MCC compact awarded to Jordan in 2010. The expansion of this plant will increase access to water for 3 million Jordanians, and as the chairman mentioned, we are pleased to see a South Florida company involved in such an important project. U.S. assistance has also focused on expanding access to education, as well as infrastructure building and teacher training. We often talk about the potential for an entire lost generation of Syrian children, and our continued focus on building and rehabilitating schools is a critical component to ensure that refugee children are able to access education in host communities. I applaud Secretary Kerry's recent announcement of $267 million in assistance for education in Jordan. We all appreciate the government of Jordan's willingness to keep its borders open to refugees, and I acknowledge the security challenges that this poses. But as fighting in Syria's southern front increases, more and more refugees will be seeking safe passage to Jordan. I'm extremely sensitive to Jordan's ability to adequately screen those trying to enter the country, and it's my hope that those waiting at its borders, those who do not pose a threat to Jordan's stability, will be admitted as swiftly as possible. Excuse me. As the U.S. seeks to expand the contributions of the members of the international coalition to counter ISIS, Jordan has continually met our call to action. King Abdullah has often referenced the need for Arab states to lead this fight against extremism, and Jordanian planes have been flying missions since the formation of the coalition. And let me again offer condolences, our condolences to the people of Jordan for the horrific loss of a Jordanian pilot at the hands of ISIS just 1 year ago. But if we want our partners to step up, we must ensure that they have what they need to both be active participants in the coalition and to defend their own borders. That's why the legislation I referenced earlier, passed by the chairman and me, along with our Appropriations Committee colleagues, Chairman Granger and Ranking Member Lowy, is so critical. Our bill will ensure the timely transfer of certain defense articles to the kingdom. King understands the importance of regional stability and recognizes the need to confront ISIS while working to find a political solution to the conflict in Syria. And we appreciate the ability to consult regularly with him. As we wait to see if talks can restart, I would just again note that as long as Assad is in power, we will not be able to stem the flow of refugees from Syria or to defeat ISIS. While the refugee crisis has no doubt strained Jordan's economy and resources, there are steps that can be taken now to reduce some of these pressures. The lifting of various barriers to work for Syrian refugees will help refugees contribute to their communities. Economic investment will shore up jobs for Jordanians. Cooperation with Israel on the Red to Dead project will help increase Jordan's access to water. And I thank the kingdom for its commitment to peace with Israel and its recent efforts to reduce tensions at the Temple Mount. The king can play a vital role in preserving the status quo, as Israel has committed to do, and I hope that any roadblocks in implementing the agreement brokered by Secretary Kerry to install cameras at the Temple Mount can soon be worked through. In addition, I'm alarmed by reports just this morning that certain members of parliament are threatening to topple the government if Jordan moves ahead with the deal to import gas from Israel's Leviathan field. This deal has the potential to bring much-needed energy sustainability to Jordan. Madam Chairman, there's certainly a lot more to discuss when it comes to the depth of U.S. cooperation with Jordan and the increasingly important role that stable Jordan plays in the region. And I look forward to hearing more from our witnesses, and I yield back.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deutsch. Mr. Cicilline is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chairman Ros-Lehtinen and Ranking Member Deutsch, for calling this hearing on Jordan and our relationship. And thank you to the witnesses. I look forward to hearing from you about how our strong partnership with the Kingdom of Jordan can continue, particularly at this critical time in our shared fight against violent extremism, as well as a pivotal moment in the resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I want to welcome Ambassador Boran and again acknowledge her extraordinary leadership here in Washington. And I also like to express my appreciation to the Kingdom of Jordan for its leadership and its commitment to the coalition to defeat ISIL. Jordan's actions as part of this coalition have been significant and difficult, notably airstrikes that have been conducted, Jordan's allowing foreign forces to use its bases, Jordan's sharing of intelligence with coalition partners, and we have a very long and close relationship with the kingdom and look forward to continued and deepening cooperation. The people and government of Jordan know all too well how ISIL's actions create instability and fear, which is why Jordan is hosting more than 630,000 refugees from Syria, and we appreciate this incredible sacrifice and remain committed to support Jordan's crisis management effort through increased economic support. I had the opportunity to visit Jordan last March, and as part of that visit, traveled to the Zatri refugee camp and saw firsthand the extraordinary challenges facing the Kingdom of Jordan and the extraordinary work being done, and I look forward to the testimony of the witnesses today and working with the administration and my colleagues to further strengthen our important relationship with the Kingdom of Jordan, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Cicilline. Ms. Frankel is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I Thank you for this opportunity, because I have to leave for a markup in a few minutes a vote at Transportation. But I wanted to start thank you for the witnesses being here. And I visited Jordan this year on a personal trip. And I just want to say, if anyone who has never been there, what a beautiful country it is. Just magnificent, beautiful sights and beautiful people. And I want to also thank, I see our ambassador here, just thank you to the people of Jordan for opening their arms to the refugees. I had an opportunity when I was there to meet with some women and children who had fled Syria. And the issue that just kept coming up over and over that Mr. Deutsch referenced to was their inability to do any work and to supplement the very pittance, really, of aid that they are getting. So I'd just be curious whether, I know there's been some discussions to maybe have some relief in that area, so I'd be curious as to that. I also would be interested to know what kind of work we're doing to enable Jordan to boost its economy. I was told that there is some work going on there, and I would also be interested to know whether any of it involves trying to advertise or boost up its tourism, because I'll tell you, I've been all over the world, and we went to the desert where the Lawrence of Arabia was filmed. It was amazing. Well, there's a lot of historic sites there. So I'd be curious about the tourism industry. But on a more somber note, what's going on in Syria is so horrific. And I am very interested in knowing what because of the witnesses that are here, what you believe is the impact of Russia now intervening in Syria, because I have heard that the rebel forces are being decimated, and I know we have aid programs to the rebels, and I'm just wondering whether it's even worthwhile programs now. And so I'd like to get your insight on that. And so when I leave, I'm not going to be rude. I have to go vote, but I'm going to catch up, and whatever you say, somebody will take notes and tell me, and I'll try to come back. And thank you very much for
Thank you,
being
Ms.
here.
Frankel. We know that you're a professional all the time, so there's no doubt. When she says that, she means it. And she's pointed out the benefits of private travel. She got to visit where Lawrence of Arabia was. Mr. Deutsch and I, on congressional travel, went to a wastewater plant, so that's quite a difference. But now we're pleased to introduce our panelists. We welcome back Ambassador Gerald Fierstein, who is the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs. Previously, the ambassador served as our ambassador to Yemen from 2010 to 2013 and has served in different postings throughout the Middle East, including as Deputy Chief of Mission in Islamabad and Deputy Consul General in Jerusalem. Thank you for your service, and we look forward to your testimony, Mr. Ambassador. Next, we welcome back Assistant Administrator Paige Alexander of the Bureau of the Middle East of USAID. Previously, Ms. Alexander has served as Assistant Administrator of the Bureau for Europe and Eurasia, as well as Associate Director of Project Liberty at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. She has also served on the board of the Basic Education Coalition and the Project on the Middle East Democracy. Welcome back. And last but certainly not least, we would like to welcome Fatima Sumar, who is the Regional Deputy Vice President for, listen to these areas of the world, Europe, Asia, the Pacific, and Latin America. Wow. For the Millennium Challenge Cooperation's Department of Compact Operations. Previously, Ms. Sumar was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs, and before that, she was a congressional aide in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And I hear that Mr. Connolly used to be an aide in that. I've heard that before. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. We will begin with you.
Thank you so much, Chairman Ros-Lehtinen, Ranking Member Deutsch, distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to discuss our relationship with the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan today. Let me also thank you for your continued support to Jordan over the years, and in particular, to express our thanks for your championing the United States-Jordan Defense Cooperation Act. Now that this legislation has passed, we look forward to expediting consideration of letters of offer to sell defense articles and services to the Kingdom of Jordan, thereby shrinking the delivery time for these articles even more. As you note in the title to this hearing, Jordan is a key partner for the United States and has played a vital role in addressing virtually all of the highest priority challenges that the United States is facing in the Middle East, from countering the threat of Daesh and supporting a peaceful political transition in Syria to expanding prosperity across the region. Jordan has been an essential ally. The King is returning to Washington later this month, and I know that President Obama looks forward to discussing many of these issues directly with him when they meet. Nowhere is the strength of our relationship more apparent than our shared efforts against the threat of Daesh and other extremists. Jordan is a committed leader in the global coalition to counter ISIL and the regional campaign against Daesh. Jordanian Air Force pilots regularly fly missions as part of Operation Inherent Resolve and have shown no sign of decreasing their tempo. As part of our broader coalition efforts against Daesh, King Abdullah has called upon the international community to challenge Daesh's recruiting. We are working hand in hand with our Jordanian counterparts to expose the false narrative of Daesh and other extremist groups and to deprive Daesh of financial resources. Jordan has been a critical partner in international security efforts around the world for many years. In 1996, the United States designated Jordan as a major non-NATO ally. They are also a member of the Global Initiative to Combat Nuclear Terrorism. Just last month, during the King's visit, Secretary Kerry signed a joint action plan with Jordan to combat the smuggling of nuclear and radioactive materials, expressing our intent to work together to prevent, detect, and respond to nuclear smuggling incidents. Jordan has also been an integral part of the political process, spearheading efforts to reach a political transition in Syria through the International Syria Support Group. Today, Foreign Minister Judah joined Secretary Kerry in Munich during a meeting of this group as they deliberate on next steps to resolve the crisis in Syria. We are also deeply appreciative of Jordan's crucial role in efforts to achieve a lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Jordan continues to demonstrate determination and resolve in support of our shared goals of reaching a two-state solution to the conflict and bringing an end to the vicious cycles of violence. Since the signing of its peace treaty with Israel in 1994, Jordan's engagement on Israeli-Palestinian issues has been critical to our ongoing efforts to advance peace and stability in the region, including this past fall when Jordan worked closely with us to help diffuse tensions in Jerusalem on the Haram al-Sharif Temple Mount compound. However, our partnership with Jordan goes beyond our two governments. Trade between our two countries remains strong. Our free trade agreement with Jordan, signed in 2000, was our first in the Arab world. Total bilateral trade reached $2.8 billion in 2015, and you can now find a number of Jordanian goods in U.S. markets, from cosmetics and jewelry to air conditioners and pharmaceuticals. Jordanians, meanwhile, have access to Florida orange juice, Boeing airplanes, and countless other U.S. products and services recognized for their quality. As part of our commitment to Jordan's security and stability during this critical time, we are providing Jordan with robust security and economic assistance. Last year, we signed a memorandum of understanding with Jordan, signaling our intent to provide the kingdom with $1 billion annually in security and economic assistance from fiscal year 2015 to fiscal year 2017, with Congress's generous support. I know my colleague will further discuss our economic support, but I wanted to note that Jordan received $385 million in foreign military financing in fiscal year 2015, making it the third largest FMF recipient in the world. We'll continue our robust support this year. Before I conclude, I would like to address one issue that I know you are aware, was an urgent topic of discussion during the King's recent visit. Jordan currently hosts more than 635,000 registered Syrian refugees. We are working closely with the Jordanian government on solutions to alleviate the strain on the country, including how to handle ongoing humanitarian challenges for the 22,000 refugees on the Syrian-Jordanian border. Chairman Ros-Lehtinen, Ranking Member Deutsch, our partnership with Jordan remains strong, and our military coordination and assistance has never been closer. From their counter-Daesh activities to Jordan's active participation in a number of peacekeeping operations around the world, Jordan is a strong friend and an essential partner in our pursuit of regional peace and prosperity. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Ms. Alexander.
Thank you, Chairman Ros-Lehtinen and Ranking Member Deutsch, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the United States Agency for International Development's assistance to Jordan. Jordan hosts one of the largest USAID missions in the world. Our longstanding partnership with the kingdom dates back nearly 6 decades. Over the years, this cooperation has improved water systems, trained teachers, and enhanced the quality of education. We have also upgraded medical facilities and have increased job opportunities by developing key sectors of the Jordanian economy. With Congress's generous support, in fiscal year 2015, $615 million went into the Economic Support Fund programs that directly help Jordanian people. Our economic assistance to Jordan is multifaceted, including direct assistance, sovereign loan guarantees, and project-based programs. We are working to help the government of Jordan deal with the significant development challenges, low economic growth, crowded classrooms, and scarce water resources, as you all have discussed. USAID has reoriented its development assistance to better support the government and the people of Jordan, and has addressed the increased needs in the areas and sectors where Syrian refugees have the greatest impact on the Jordanian communities. We recognize the enormous strain on resources that Jordanians face due to the large population increases from the Syria crisis. Our programming is designed not only to help host communities meet current needs, but also to identify and catalyze innovations that meet Jordan's longer-term development challenges. My statement for the record includes more details of the USAID priorities and challenges in Jordan. I'd like to briefly give you some examples here. USAID supports the government of Jordan's reform agenda, focusing on strengthening civil society, rule of law, and good governance with partners such as the chairman's mention of IRI. During my trip to Jordan last year, I met with local officials and communities hosting these large refugee populations. They told me the assistance they receive from the American people has been invaluable. For example, USAID partners with local communities and officials to identify the real stressors and the priorities in community life. And then USAID, with our partners, helps the municipalities implement very practical solutions, things such as paving streets, replacing broken streetlights, or picking up the trash, which make a major difference in these communities. USAID's economic development and energy programs in Jordan have evolved over the years, from building roads to building a more diverse and globally competitive economy. One program has awarded nearly 100 grants totaling more than $5 million to small and medium-sized enterprises. One of these grants went to the Andalus Dairy Factory, run by local cattle farmer association in northern Jordan. With the help of the project, the factory entered a partnership with Safeway and achieved a $140,000 annual increase in revenue, and now they are on track to double that increase in the coming year. We are also the lead donor for education in Jordan, where the Syria crisis is having a profound effect on the public schools. To help the Jordanians meet this challenge, USAID is expanding 120 schools, renovating 146 schools, and building 25 new schools in areas where there are large population increases from the refugee flows. We are also fast-tracking the expansion of 20 schools in the most needed areas. Just last week, I attended the London conference where Secretary Kerry announced the additional $267 million commitment for education in Jordan. This will help Jordanian public schools provide quality education for an estimated 230,000 Syrian refugee children and another 500,000 Jordanian students. I want to share one particularly inspiring story, that of Mahal Ashkar. She's the principal of the Kaula Taliban primary girls' school. When a Syrian refugee mother approached the school and wanted to get her child in, she was told that the classes were full. She approached the principal, and Ms. Al-Ashkar's response was simple: yes, Your daughter can come to school. I ask that you bring a chair because we've run out of chairs. It is by supporting educators and families determined to get ahead that we can make sure more children are not lost to this conflict. We are also working to ensure that the humanitarian assistance we provide to Syrian refugees has benefits for the local Jordanian economy. For example, we fund a food voucher debit card for Syrian refugees. I believe the two of you saw this when you were in the camp. Actually brought one because it's nicely branded as well. And for example, with these vouchers, these cards are used to shop in the local Jordanian supermarkets and stores. They give the users a dignified way to buy food for their families, giving them more choice and nutritional diversity than food handouts would permit. It has also provided an important economic boost for the host country. It's estimated that the program has injected at least $428 million into the Jordanian economy, providing new jobs and new revenues to food retailers, traders, and producers. Going forward, we need to think about how to preserve the important development gains made through the years of bilateral assistance to Jordan, while developing creative solutions that help to meet the complex challenges posed by refugees living in these host communities. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and I look forward to your questions.
So much, Ms. Alexander. Ms. Sumar.
Well, thank you so much, and good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Ros-Lehtinen, Ranking Member Deutsch, and members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to discuss the Millennium Challenge Corporation's work with our partners in Jordan to fight poverty. I request that my full written testimony be submitted for the record.
Without objection.
MCC forms partnership with some of the world's poorest countries, but only those committed to good governance, economic freedom, and investments in their citizens. MCC provides these select countries, like Jordan, with grants to fund country-led projects and reforms designed to reduce poverty by promoting sustainable economic growth. MCC's Board of Directors selected Jordan as eligible for a threshold program in 2005. The threshold program supported Jordan's efforts to strengthen local government by increasing transparency and accountability. The program also sought to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of customs administration as a way to encourage trade. Our $275 million compact with Jordan began implementation in December 2011 and will end in December of this year. Because Jordan is one of the most water-scarce countries in the world, our compact focuses on increasing the supply of water available to households and businesses and improving the efficiency of water delivery, wastewater collection, and wastewater treatment. Affordable access to clean water is critical, not just for businesses and agricultural producers, but for all Jordanians. The scarcity and expense of water constrains the country's economic potential. Though our partnership began before the crisis in Syria erupted, Jordan's generous response to that crisis has only compounded the strain on the country's water supply, making MCC's work there even more critical. The compact includes 3 closely related projects to address the needs of the government's entire water system. First, as you saw during your visit there, the biggest investment of the compact is the expansion of the Asamra wastewater treatment plant, originally built with support from USAID. It is the primary facility for treating wastewater from Jordan's Amman and Zarqa governorates, where much of the country's population lives. The expansion increased the plant's capacity by more than 1/3, while more than doubling its capacity to handle certain chemicals and other materials. It now treats 70% of the country's wastewater. One of the most interesting aspects of this project is its innovative financing. MCC's grant is paying for the expansion in partnership with a private sector operator. This public-private partnership allowed MCC's investment of $93 million to mobilize an additional $110 million from the private sector. Through this financing method, the private sector not only provides over 50% of the cost of construction, it also assures that the facility is operated and maintained at world-class standards for 25 years. Second, the wastewater network project will modernize and upgrade the outdated sewer system in Zarqa. This project has already replaced or rehabilitated trunk sewer lines and expanded the system by laying over 139 miles of sewer pipe. And third, our water network restructuring project. Before this project, if you can imagine, as much as 50% of water that entered the system was lost, both through leaks in the network and weak management, and a sustainably high loss rate given Jordan's scarce water resources. This third project has repaired reservoirs and pumping stations and already replaced more than 70% of the targeted 495 miles of urban drinking water pipelines. What's perhaps most noticeable about this program and about all of MCC's compacts with our partner countries is that it's the Jordanians who determine which problem we should address and how we should tackle it. Following the end of our engagement with our partner countries, we perform impact evaluations where possible to see how successful our projects were in reducing poverty. In Jordan, we are implementing an innovative impact evaluation of the benefits of our projects to Jordanian households and farmers. This impact evaluation will be one of the first of its kind to measure the economic benefits of improved water infrastructure. The success of this evaluation and of our overall compact is a product of the close relationship between MCC and the government of Jordan. The government of Jordan has been an excellent partner in the development and implementation of the compact. Thank you again for the invitation to testify, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you so much for excellent presentations. I will begin the question and answer period. One of Jordan's critical needs is energy, although not as burdensome now since, thankfully, oil prices have taken a dive. But Jordan has almost no domestic protection to talk about, importing around 97% of its energy needs. The agreement to import natural gas from Israel could be a game changer, not just for Jordan and Israel, but for the entire region. Ambassador Fierstein, would you talk about the significant foreign policy benefits for all parties involved with this agreement? What has the U.S. been doing to promote these exports, given that there have been some challenges faced on both sides?
Absolutely, Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen. The United States has been strongly supporting the efforts of the two parties with Noble Energy, an American energy provider, to reach agreement to draw natural gas from the Leviathan field as well as the Tamar field in Israel. Those talks are going forward with a great deal of encouragement from the United States. Our Acting Assistant Secretary for Energy, Amos Hochstein, has been very much involved in promoting the efforts and discussing this. And we are optimistic that these contracts will be completed and that the gas will be provided to Jordan. As you said quite correctly, it's going to be a significant bonus for Jordan, a reliable, sustainable source of energy for them to fuel their economic growth and development going forward.
Thank you. And Ambassador, water is also a critical need, and the FY 2016 Omnibus Bill, Congress appropriated $100 million in economic support funds to be set aside to Jordan for supporting its Red to Dead Canal project, pending completion of the relevant studies and assessment. Where are we on those assessments? What obstacles are needed to be overcome in order to get this project up and running?
Thank you, and absolutely, we appreciated the congressional decision to provide $100 million for the Red Dead effort. We are engaged very closely with the government of Jordan as well as with the Israelis and the Palestinians, pushing that forward. As you noted, and Ms. Alexander may be able to comment as well, we are engaged in the effort to complete the environmental impact studies and the other work that's necessary. But we also believe that we're moving closer, perhaps in another month or two, to having a meeting that will bring all of the parties together to continue the design work and to further the implementation of that project.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Alexander, you noted that Jordan hosts one of the largest USAID missions in the world, and we've also noted not just the willingness of the government to work with our mission, but that the Jordanian people very much welcome a lot of the work that we do there. The kingdom represents a relatively open space, and a difficult region for civil society, and the sort of work that USAID is looking to expand on and areas that it's hoping to strengthen. Does Jordan's willingness to work on these issues suggest an opportunity for increased support for democratic institutions? What would that look like? And are we focusing too much of our assistance on meeting the needs of the Syrian refugees and not enough on Jordan's actual development needs? And I encourage USAID to explore new entities, a new partnership with groups that have a proven track record of local democratic governance in Jordan. What type of local government assistance gives us the ability to strengthen the stability of a country like Jordan, given the immense pressure that it is under?
Thank you. I agree that the global economic crisis has really undermined all the previous gains that the Jordanian government had, reduced exports and remittances, or reduced tourism revenue, as referenced before, and foreign direct investment. So the loss of this and then the trading partners of Egypt, Syria, and Iraq that had been such a valued part of the economy and economic development for Jordan has really set them back. However, having such an excellent partnership with the Jordanian government, we've continued to work very closely on the Jordan response plan and reorient our assistance to make sure that we're addressing their needs as well as the stressors on the sectors, whether it's education, health, water. So I think the partnership is valuable. I would not say that there is a lack of understanding between the need between the Syrian refugees and the host communities. I think that we're working very hard to make sure that we are addressing the Jordanian government's concern about that.
And finally, as I mentioned earlier, Congressman Deutsch and I visited that wastewater project during our last visit to Jordan together, and it was remarkable how much progress had been made on such an important issue for Jordan, water. And I think that I know that Jordan's MCC contract is completed at the end of this year. The compact focused on 3 major water projects, but Ms. Sumar, with Jordan being such an important player for the region in its stability, vital to ensuring that the entire region doesn't descend into something much worse. Do you think that Jordan would be a good contender for a second MCC contract and compact? And if so, what areas would be best to focus on for future projects?
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman, for the question, and thank you for taking the time to visit the plant during your visit to Jordan. As you noted, we've had terrific success in this compact because of the strong partnership we've had with the government of Jordan and our implementing partners, the Millennium Challenge Account Jordan. According to our statute by Congress for our legislation, we are both time-bound in the way we operate, but we are also bound by income levels. And MCC only works in countries with both low-income and lower-middle-income status. Currently, starting in fiscal year 12, Jordan graduated from lower middle income status and is currently an upper middle income country. There are ongoing negotiations and conversations, I understand, between the government of Jordan and the World Bank on if its population numbers, given the flows from the refugee crisis, would change some of those calculations, given its GNI per capita. We look forward to hearing the decision from the World Bank, which is where we get our data from. But currently, Jordan would not be a contender for a second compact because it has graduated to upper middle income status. And that is a consideration that we have to take seriously by our legislation.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to yield now to my great colleague, Congressman Deutsch.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Alexander, outside of the refugee-specific initiatives, what other successes can you point to in supporting job creation initiatives in Jordan?
Thank you. Our economic development assistance has worked on everything from fiscal reforms at the ministries to make sure we have long-term sustainability and better procedures in place. We've also worked in the healthcare sector, and I would say that building maternal and child health care, child facilities and pediatric facilities. We've modernized the health workforce, and we've established a health quality assurance mechanism. The financial sustainability of Almost all of the issues, including water, is a major one, as referenced earlier, with 90% of the water imported, of the gas and energy, imported. That has become a major issue for us. In the water sector, we're looking at non-revenue water loss and working directly with the ministries to make sure that they're tightening up their systems. So I would say it's on the fiscal side with the ministries, as well on the local government side with making sure that civil society is listened to in a lot of these communities that are suffering from stress.
Great, thanks. Ambassador Firestein, King Abdullah makes very strong pronouncements in the international community that Arab states must lead the fight against ISIS. Can you just share your insight as to whether the Jordanian public is still supportive of the country's involvement and leadership role in the campaign against ISIS?
Thank you, Congressman Deutsch. I believe that our assessment is that there is still a high level of support within the Jordanian community for the effort to combat violent extremism. The King and the government of Jordan have done a good job of trying to explain to the Jordanian people what the challenges are, what the threat is to Jordanian security and stability. He is engaged broadly with not only political leaders, but also with religious leaders, motivating and energizing imams to speak out in the mosques against the threat of violent extremism. In this context, I think that the Jordanians have really been leaders, not only in terms of how they've approached the challenge and the issues within Jordan, but also in trying to assist and to build a broader Sunni Arab coalition that speaks out very strongly against this threat.
Right. How helpful do you think the King can be with respect to halting Russian aggression against the moderate opposition in Syria? Is there a role for the King there?
Well, this is an important issue, and of course, as you know, the King did try to engage the Russians in an effort to prevent the expansion of the conflict towards the Jordanian borders in southern Syria. Our understanding, based on our discussions with him, is that he's been disappointed, of course, in the lack of Russian responsiveness, although when he discusses directly with President Putin, he was under the impression that the Russians would be cooperative with this effort. To be entirely honest, we were skeptical of the effort, and we remain skeptical. But the King believes that this is an important element, and that he needs to be able to speak to the Russians and try to get the Syrian government to go along with this. So he's going to continue to try, but I think that at this point he's a little bit more skeptical and wary about how the Russians might respond.
Great. And then finally, just turning away from Jordan just for a second, since you're here, I understand there's legislation in the Senate, the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, that passed out of the Senate Judiciary Committee recently, and as a member of both the Foreign Affairs and Judiciary Committees here in the House, I have an interest in that. And since you're here, I thought I'd ask whether the department has a position on this bill.
Thank you very much for that question, Congressman Deutsch. And we do. We understand and sympathize with the motivation behind the JASTA legislation. The proposed remedy, however, would enact broad changes in longstanding international law regarding sovereign immunity that, if applied globally, could have serious implications for U.S. interests. Before proceeding with the legislation, we believe there needs to be more careful consideration of the potential unintended consequences of its enactment, and we would welcome opportunities to engage with the Congress in that discussion.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Thanks to all of our witnesses for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. Mr. Rohrbacher.
First and foremost, I would like to thank you, Madam Chairman, for your leadership over the years. I've been serving in Congress with you for 28 years, and you have been a dynamo on those issues that are vital to our national security and to human rights as well. So thank you for for bringing this up today, because today you have focused our attention on a country that is indispensable to the cause of peace in the Middle East. Without Jordan, we all lose. Everybody loses if Jordan succumbs to radicalization, and I would say that we need to pay this kind of attention all the time towards this. Let me ask a little bit about the, learned a long time ago, my parents came from dirt poor farms in North Dakota, and that was long before they had any of the oil or anything up there. And I was taught that people can't be prosperous. Ordinary people can't live a prosperous and decent life without enough energy, but also enough water. And you were just going through in the testimony the water projects and how much money has been put into that. Is there still a water shortage in Jordan after the investment that we've made?
I will say yes, it's the third most water scarce country in the world. And so this is why a lot of our assistance at USAID has focused on issues such as non-revenue water loss and specifically reforming and restructuring how to make this system more efficient. I'll turn it to my colleague to talk about the MCC work.
So certainly, Congressman, it's not only is it one of the most water scarce countries in the world, it's a country that is strained under a burgeoning population flows. And so the investments that MCC has been making over the past 5 years are intended to not only take a look at the current needs of the Jordanian people in the cities, but also take a long-term view of the kind of economic growth that's needed.
Is it based on reclamation? Is that the system that you've been providing support for in Jordan?
It's based on 3 different principles. One is how we need to add different parts of wastewater treatment options so that you don't have sewage flowing over into your major cities and streets. In order to do that, we built the signature project, which is this Asamra wastewater treatment plant. Connected to that are wastewater pipes that would be needed to actually pipe out the sewage from the cities into the treatment plant. So we've built hundreds of kilometers of those pipes. But the third part of that, and particularly most important for people's everyday lives, is to make sure they also have the drinking water that they need in the drinking supply. So the third component is building the water pipes for drinking water. As a result of that entire holistic intervention, what we're seeing is not just piping the wastewater out, treating and cleaning it, but pumping that water in a clean way back into the irrigation system of Jordan. So one of the biggest results we've seen is we've freed up to 10% of water to use for irrigation in the Jordan River Valley. That's fresh water that we're not putting back into the system, and it's increasing it for farmers and beneficiaries alike.
Well, just to let you know, I come from Orange County, California, and in Orange County, we are on a desert, and we have a water system now, reclamation system, in which we reuse our water 9 times before it's let out into the ocean. And I would hope that type of with the use of technology, we can help solve that problem, and we should certainly be sharing that technology with the people of Jordan. And second of all, about the Red Sea to Dead Sea project, is that going to be a reality? This is something that's going on that provides both energy and water, does it not?
As my colleague had previously mentioned, we're working to understand the long-term economic viability of the project and to ensure that we have plans in place to mitigate any environmental impacts of the project. We have worked very closely with our colleagues at State and consulting with the Jordanians and the Israeli government, and we do think there is a meeting coming up where the next phase of this will be discussed.
I am concerned, frankly, and Madam Chairman, we see this here in the United States as well. There are, people who believe in the environment and keeping it a clean environment is their #1 priority, and sometimes they're a little bit too, how do you say, unrealistic about the cost of having a 95% situation rather than a 100% situation. And the Red Sea to Dead Sea project has been going on for a long time and offers such a great potential for benefit for economic and economic benefit means how well people are living, ordinary people. And I would hope that people who are taking extreme positions on the environment are not undermining the well-being of women and children who are trying to live their lives today, which I think would be greatly benefited by that project. With that said, we ought to do everything we can, and thank you for leading the effort to do something good for a good friend of the United States. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rohrabacher, and thank you to our panelists for excellent testimony. Thank you to the ambassador for joining us. And with that, the subcommittee is adjourned because we will have votes in about 5 minutes. Thank you so much.